Hey guys, welcome back to Force StarCraft 2 strategy. I am Force, and today we're going to be taking a look at a Zerg strategy. Basically what we're going to be looking at today is going heavy Roach early on versus a Terran opponent who is teching up. So we're going to use our scouting information to see that they're teching, and then we're going to go and pump out Roaches as quickly as possible to hit them early. And this is going to work if your opponent isn't going for Marauders. If they are going for Marauders, you're going to be in a lot of trouble basically, because they're going to be able to pretty much sit behind their wall, fend off your attack, and then push out pretty hard. But if you get the scouting information and you see that they're teching up fast and they're going for either a Hellion push or that they're going for like a fast Banshee, like Marine into Banshee, something along those lines, then you're going to be able to safely do this. So in this particular strategy replay, the Zerg player we're looking at is Glon, and our Terran opponent is Daemon. So we're going to go ahead and go straight into Glon, or Gloin, or Glon, or I don't know how to pronounce that. G-L-O-N? I think it's Glon. Anyways, getting into the strategy here. Starting off pretty standard, what we're going to be doing is moving out our overlords, trying to get some scouting information, trying to find out where our opponent is. We're going to stick to our economy for the time being before we move out with any drones to do some scouting. Now what we're going to be doing here is dropping our Extractor, our spawning pool, there we go. Going to be dropping our spawning pool at 13, and then we're going to be following that up with an Extractor. So what we're looking at is one base Zerg play, and what that means is not going for that heavy macro intensive game, but instead going for kind of a strong early push with a particular mix of units. And again, like I said, in this particular strategy replay, we are looking at going for those Roaches, and we're going to be pushing out against our Terran opponent who doesn't appear to be going for Marauders. So nothing too exciting is going to be happening thus far. I have a few key things to note. I would, honestly, before this point, I probably would have sent out a drone by now to do some scouting information, try to figure out exactly where our opponent is, and then, of course, what he's doing. Unfortunately, at this point, sending out any units right now, be it Zerglings or drones, we're not going to be able to get into his base, so we're not going to be able to see his tech. Now, of course, once we do finally find our opponent with some overlords, which, of course, as you saw at the beginning of our video, the opponent was here. So once we do finally poke into the base with the overlord, unfortunately, by that time, he is likely to have at least a few Marines, and he's going to be able to fend off our overlord, and we may not get enough scouting information that we actually need. But as you can see here, we do have our spawning pool up, and we are dropping that Roach Warren right now. We're dropping that Roach Warren at 18 supply. Again, that dropped us down to 17 because we do lose a supply whenever we drop a Zerg building. I would hope that you guys would know that by now. We do have our Queen coming up right now, and as you can see, there she is, doing that spew larva, that spawn larva ability that she does so well. Now, we want to make sure we do stop any scouting information from our Terran opponent, so we're going to be trying to take out this SCV as quickly as possible. Not sure if he got in far enough to see that Roach Warren. We're going to actually take a look real quick here. No, so he did not, in fact, get in far enough to see the Roach Warren, so it still is unbeknownst to him. And here we go with our scouting information. So, again, we're playing with that one base Zerg play, going straight for the Roaches, and we're doing so under the premise that our opponent isn't going for Marauders. Now, as you can see, what we saw here was a barracks and a factory, and we saw no tech lab on that barracks, so we're safe from Marauders for the time being. With this factory being as far as it is right now, he wouldn't have another barracks with a tech lab on quite yet. He could shortly, but not quite yet in the time we did get that scouting information yet. So we don't have to worry for the time being about Marauders. So that means we're going to be safe to go ahead and push out. As you can see, we do have our Roaches created right now. Our Roach Warren did pop up, and we do have our hatchery rallied. There we go, that's the word I'm looking for. We do have our hatchery rallied outside of our base. Ideally, what you're going to want to do is rally your hatchery somewhere close to your opponent's base. That way, when you do in fact create reinforcements, that's where they will be going. Hopefully, he does move that rally point eventually at some point. I think he did right there. Okay, so he's rallying to his units, so that's also a good decision as well. Again, the only problem with that is if you happen to lose the Roach that it's rallied to, then that rally point's going to drop off. But we're pushing forward right now. As you can see, our opponent did go for that fast Hellion build. Pretty strong build, but it's only strong versus Zerglings, unfortunately. And since we do have these Roaches here, we're going to be able to push forward pretty much uncontested. He does have this bunker, but Marines don't do too much damage versus don't do too much damage versus roaches, especially when there's not a lot of them. And as you can see here, the Terran player is like, oh no, one base Zerg. Basically meaning that, again, we instead of opting to go for that fast expansion like so many Zerg players do, we stuck to one base and we used all of our economy to come out with a strong army early in the game. And here you go, you can see that we do have these support units rally to our opponent's base. In fact, even moving out with a queen, I think that was a mistake. Probably just a little bit of a misclick there from our Zerg player. But moving into his base and with these Roaches, we're going to absolutely be able to devastate everything he has. Again, because he didn't have enough Marauders or enough of an army early on, because he was going for that 1-1-1 build. It set him too far behind, and when we did push out, we just vastly outnumbered what he was able to have. And again, that's one of those things where if it looks like your opponent is teching up, this is just one of the type of strategy ideas, the strategy theories, that if your opponent seems to be teching up early, if you can manage to muster up a sufficient enough force to hit him before he can take advantage of his high tech to bring out forces himself, if you can manage to muster up a strong enough force to hit him before that point, then you're going to do significant damage, as you can see here. Now, had we waited too much longer, he probably would have had a few more Marines, he probably would have had a few more Hellions, and then even, as you can see, he did have a Barracks with that tech lab there, so he was about to work on creating some Marauders as well. But we just hit him too early. He wasn't able to get that out quite at that point, and this one base Zerg play was a success. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at that strategy again. We started off with that spawning pool at 13, and then we followed that up with an Extractor, saturating that Extractor. Now once that spawning pool came up, we went ahead and dropped down our Roach Warren. So we were going for that kind of straight right into Roach Warren build. Now we could have, the good thing is that obviously we wasted the minerals on the Roach Warren, but if we saw that he was going for heavy Marauders, we still could have just gone for straight up Speedlings. There was nothing really stopping us from getting the Speedling tech and bringing Speedlings out onto the board. Had we seen, when we moved out our 2 early Zerglings to scout his base, had we seen Marauders coming at us, it wouldn't have been too late. Making these Roaches wouldn't have been entirely in vain. So that's kind of the idea behind it. We're able to respond based on what they get, and when we saw that he was going for that fast tech, he had that Barracks, the factory, and the starport up, we responded by just pumping out massive amounts of Roaches and pushing out in his base right away. And as you can see, it was quite the success. So yeah, guys, again, this has been Force StarCraft 2 Strategy. If you guys like our videos and you like what we're doing here, please do go ahead and subscribe to our channel. Keep watching and keep owning, guys. So as you can see, this is exactly what I was talking about. Hydralisks do so much damage versus these Terran ground units early on. Even with the stim pack available, you can just see how quickly the Hydralisks were able to mow them down. In fact, we did not even have to move in any Speedlings as well. That was solely Hydralisk power. Took out